Gotham in their own attacking third. Then Garris gets the ball. Whoops! See you later, Jess Carter. I know you're going to the English national team, but you're going to have to take that Meg with you. It's beautiful from Garris.
What's up, H-Town and all around? You know the mug, you know the voice, OSG. This is the Dash Dispatch. Excited for this one, even though it wasn't an exciting game. But, the Dash play, we love to watch the Dash. This week, I'm bringing on Manny from Bayou City, the orange and blueprint. See, I almost did it like you did last week. But the orange and blueprints, Manny, what's up, brother? And thank you for coming on.
Hey everyone, it's great. It's great to be here. It's great to talk about the Dash season's going so far. Like you said, it wasn't a good game, but still somewhat a good result, a good point, but it's still good very much to be here with y'all.
Yeah, Gotham's a dangerous team, so we'll take the point when we can get the point, but we'll get into that. But to start off the show, again, appreciate you for coming on. This is a good one. I told y'all that there's going to be a lot of guests coming on this year, and I'm not afraid to bring on anybody and have anybody on and just talk the Dash. There's enough news to go out there for everybody, so man, I'm going to bring them on. Even if you're listening and you want to come on, let me know. We'll talk. We'll talk. I have plenty of time, plenty of soccer to talk. What is the hashtag WOSO? WOSO, all right? Or I guess that's how you say it, right?
Yeah, well, so yeah.
But yeah, but man, all right, let's get it started. And first things first, the girls kind of released a video this week at practice with Ramona Bachmann doing the gender reveal, which was fun, exciting. All the girls got to guess first, and then they gave her looks like a ball, filled it up, and she is gonna be a parent to a baby boy. So it's so exciting to find out they're having a baby boy. Exciting for her family time and just, for congrats. And, I'm sure, what does that make it? Just a couple months away. Well, not even longer than that, huh? Because you find out the baby's, sorry, no kids, guys. So I'm just marking myself there. But, man, Ramona Bachman, congratulations, right, Manny?
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to see. I think, it's I think especially for women's soccer, you want to have that environment of I think a milestone, I think for the men's, it's kind of hard to see that in the game. I think we see like, oh, he had a kid, like Steve Clark last year. He had a kid, and we just barely knew, like we barely, see it. But I think women's soccer, it's much more integral in their lives and also, the careers. And just having that to celebrate, it's a wonderful step to everyone to see as well. It's just a side note, funny, just the three, all the Dash players, Katie, Ryan, Chappie, and now Ramona Bachman. They're all boys. It's funny they're supplying the future generation of the Dynamo that need it
Oh,
right.
that would be the big hope. That'd be the big hope, 15 years or so from now. That'd be the big hope. But Ramona hopped on a plane today, I believe, went back to Europe. I'm not sure if it's just international duty or if it will be for a longer stint. It was nice to, see her, hop in and get into the game at least for a few minutes and try to work on some form. But as we're sitting here talking, we're watching Dynamo Dose play, and they give up a freaking goal. Unfortunately, so that's what we're doing right now. So after watching the
Yeah.
Dynamo play tonight, but man, so game 0-0 game. As we mentioned, we're playing Gotham. We know what type of team Gotham is. They're a very tough team. They had a lot of turnover this year. Juan Carlos Ambrose coming in, hell of a coach. Yasmin Ryan Sheehan, Abby Smith, all coming from Gotham. So you're going to get a good taste of, and you'll be familiar with it too as well. But lineups to start the game, there was just a couple changes that you want to mention. Ryan Garys gets to start, and then of course, the super sub Heather Graham gets to start. Or I think Garys has two starts in a row. It was Colaprico that got her start back, I believe. But Heather Graham, so making a couple changes, things that we talked about on this show the past couple weeks. Well, just since the season started, Manny, is what Fabrice was going to do and what type of lineup he was going to go with. Was it going to be the experience or was it going to be kind of a youthful type one? And it's been experience the first two. This one, you kind of look like, hey, I got to start, Graham, Maggie Graham, and get her in there. So add a little bit of youth, but we've been kind of playing with the lineup and what have you been okay with his lineup choices and then making the change this week to add in a couple pieces like Graham as a starter?
Um, I think at the beginning, I give a benefit of the doubt of his lineup choices, going with safe
Right.
experience. But I think to the credit for the dash, I think has helped them a lot, to be honest, to add the experience and then the rookies and then the youth. I think you see hugely in this game how much, even though we won, I think for this game, you have Delaney Sheehan who was started the first game, sub in the second game, and started this game. Maggie, who's been exploding off the bench, and you would think, these players are good. They deserve to be in the starting 11, and they do. But the problem is that once you put them in, you kind of leave the bench more weaker, And that's
Mm.
I think when we saw this game folded out, I think it was sort of a battle in the midfield, no real making differences, and going to the second half. Usually when the dash, puts in the second gear, substitutions, but all your huge substitutions are already on the pitch, and so it's like who are you gonna bring on? And so I think for that, it's kind of hard. And I think for me, we'll talk about this later. I think not having a true number 9, you know, on the pitch, Yasmin Ryan up front, she did a good work. She did a lot, but you could tell that I think having that sole striker role is a little bit too much for her and puts her off her game a lot. But you could saw uh, how Messiah Bright, even though she may have no assist or no goals this season, but just her presence alone, just being that striker for Yasmin Ryan, changed the game a lot. It changed hugely, but sadly, we only saw like the only last 15 minutes of it. So, if she was there, maybe the whole since the beginning, maybe the game would have been turned out different. But that's my overall. But
Whew.
lineup,
That it,
lineup, lineup itself, I think, uh, no complaints on defense. That's it's your defense. That's your defense. I think it's just finding the right points to put midfielder and striker, and I think that's the only thing we can see from moving forward.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Two perspectives you mentioned with the lineup. The lineup we started with experience is good. You brought on some game changers per se, some playmakers or tempo changers, and it worked out for the Dash. And now this time you kind of started those tempo makers off the bench and gave them from the first 90. And then, like you said, who's going to spark off the bench now. So it's two different perspectives. You can see it. At first, you think you have depth on the bench, but then when you start that depth and put those starters on the bench, you kind of look at it backwards. Like, hold on, I don't have depth anymore. So that's an interesting way to look at it. But let's get into the actual game itself. I already mentioned it was boring. It was just kind of one of those games. I don't think either keeper really had to take a drink of water the entire game. As we mentioned, it was 0-0. Yasmin Ryan was isolated up top, and I don't think was very involved at all as far as us getting her the ball and moving the ball into her direction or making a couple runs. But she was marked and she was by herself, and Gotham was doing such a good job with their press to start the game, pushing us back and holding us back to where there was enough separation between the midfield and Yasmin Ryan, anyways, to where even if she did get near the ball, she was by herself on an island and nobody to work with. And we couldn't get forward. Just Gotham did a great job. Give me your perspective of, basically first 15, 30 minutes of how this game, the entire first half, really, because both halves kind of repeated itself.
Yeah, I think the first half you got to look into it like I think this
Mm-hmm.
is the first time we experiment, having, this depth up front, and you would think there will be a huge tempo change. But also, you gotta think about as well, Gotham as well. They experienced a lot of departures, a lot of injuries at the moment. So they were more comfortable absorbing everything and trying to nullify, anything that's happening. And I think for me, I think the key reason why it was so flat, the midfield of Gotham were more experienced players. You have Real, you have Torres, you have Ella Stevens that really control that middle of the park. And so the dash had to put everything out in the wide area. And it was hard
Mm-hmm.
because you kind of have, of course, you have Carter, experienced English international, played a lot of time in Chelsea. Left back, real solid. Really covering that defense. So it was really hard for Avery Patterson to get a good cross. And of course, you have the other side, Bruninha, a strong, athletic fullback for Brazil, only 21, 22 years old. And it was hard for Yasmin Ryan just or Ryan Garris to get past her. It was hard, and
Yeah.
I think what the detriment was that Barbara Olivieri, I think the first two games she was pretty solid, maybe not spectacular but solid. But today that game she was real quiet, real quiet. No spark from her, and I think you expect, like, if she's not going, Delaney Sheehan, what was the one that pushes the ball forward, she was quiet too. So you could tell that it was really Gotham's game to control, and of course you saw the first they had excellent crosses, they had excellent tempo, just couldn't put anything back at the net. There was a tweet earlier saw after this game, like, there was the most anti-attacking football of the women's season this game. I was like, of course, had to be the Dash playing for in that game
Yeah.
to be the most anti-attacking game, but it just happened. It's I think both teams. Uh, I think it was a good game overall for the Dash to get a point because Gotham at their strongest will be a danger. But of course, getting a draw at home is not, best of scenario. But it is what it is. That's soccer. You just can't tell how games pan out.
Right. And the way the game did play out, you gotta be happy, not necessarily happy, but you gotta be good with it. You got to point out of it and not taking the loss at home at the same time. But man, this game just, to me, like you said, Gotham just was able to. But one thing that we noticed straight right off at the beginning of the game was how we were going to defend, and that's we weren't going to defend our wings at friggin' all is what it felt like to me. And
Mhm.
Gotham kind of saw this, recognized this straight off the bat. They were switching the ball left and right and getting those crosses in and crosses in and crosses in. And I felt like, oh my God, this is going to be dangerous. The way, the first two games, a couple mental lapses, and you're like, oh, I don't want one of these again, or just an open run or anything. It ended up working out. We absorbed every single one of those crosses and just was, I guess, played the right defense. But I don't know if I mean, you had to in the end, but I don't know if our defense structure was so built to defend this game to win that it didn't allow our offense to come together and get out of that press, or what. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Was it just we defended, overloaded the defense today?
No, I think you had a pretty good setup. I think we had uh you know the defense in the back, as we mentioned before, even though we know these players, but it's the first time they played together.
Hmm.
Kaylin, her literally her day, game three back. Paige Nielsen, always how reliable she is, strong defender. And I think, player of the match of this game was Natalie Jacobs. She really, really nullified Bruninha. I think Bruninha really had a bad game because of how prolific Jacobs was on her. And even though we defended a lot, but it was a good defending because it nullified mostly Gotham's attack because Esther Gonzalez, who's not maybe a tall structure, but she is a prolific goal scorer. But she had to go to the right side to help Bruginha to get the ball in the middle of the box because Natalie Jacobs was just all over him. But I think you also had to look into the aspects of the players. You had Avery Patterson who loves to go up in front of the field, and she happened to do more back defense just because I think she's a player that wants to sacrifice herself for the better team. If she needs to go back, she will go back. Calaprico, a defensive midfielder who, is trying to get the ball to move it forward. But I think the real question was Maggie. I think Maggie, she had a great game, good first start, but she's a box-to-box midfielder. Maybe she just knew of the game, maybe just, trying to get her feet in, but she happens to be more in the defensive end. a defensive end instead of being going up and forth or timing that well. But happened to be good for the dash because it nullified a lot of the attacking threats that Gotham did. But it's just how the game went. I think it really went well. It really go well. But I think the problem is just I think it's just this I think and the complaint of the first two games it was the defense making rookie mistakes. I think the criticism this game was that the midfielder was making too much mistakes of going back too much and not moving the ball forward. I think that was the question of it. It's just many new components starting together as one and not getting the best out of it.
Right. So we kind of mentioned previous game substitutes were the ones that came in and gave the spark and kind of changed the game and gave the Dash the final push. This time substitutes didn't really do that. Duljan came on, you know, gritty
Mm,
girl, gave a fight, but just kind of got pressed into the press in this game. And then the other subs still really didn't make a difference. Bright came on and added a little pace on later. And gave us a couple opportunities. Alozi has just been disappointing as well, but so nothing really came on for the spark, but ended up with a 0-0 tie. So it was one of those that I guess you're just happy, even when you're looking at the stats here. They outpassed us, they outcommitted us, they just shot us. We only had one shot on target. Of the three shots, they outpossessed us 60-40 almost. It just beat us across the board in stats, and it was just one of those where you just Juan Carlos kicked our butt today, and that's the Gotham game, Gotham style. Like I said, they're injured and missing a lot of pieces as well, but so I got to be happy with the 1 point. But after you go out and you look at this, you got a shout out to the defense, and like you said, it's Katie Lynn, Paige Nilsson, and Natalie Jacobs, Avery Patterson helping out. Sometimes Brian Gary's pushing back or just in the midfield, but shout out to the defense who kept it together, held it together, didn't allow anything to even come close to Jane Campbell having to put any effort into this. And it was something very pleasing and reminded of the kind of defense that has played for the Dash the past couple of years previous, where they were just unstoppable, it was hard to score on this team. And it was a good reminder of this is the potential this team has. But it's those 4 players back there, man. But I know they can't do it all year long without help, and I know we're gonna have. Oh man, Dose just got scored on again. I know we're gonna have help on coming on later on this episode, and that we're gonna talk about in addition. But there doesn't look to be much support in the defensive line right now. So shout out to the defense in this game and how they performed in this match, man. And proud of them for holding their heads up. And Natalie Jacobs was just a trooper. You mentioned woman of the match. 100 no doubt was woman of the match. She was everywhere. Did everything she could possibly do. If
yeah.
I had here, I would put all 3 of them up right now.
Yeah, but I think as well, you look at substitutions, 2 minutes in the game, Dujan, Evelyn Dujan got injured per se. She was part of a rough tackle that rolled her
Yeah,
ankle. You could tell
it
that
did
that
make a
affected her
difference.
game. It affected her game throughout though. I think she just don't want to push herself in case of something worse can happen. Could be a small be a little inflammation right there, but
He
that's
was walking fine after the game in the tunnel, just afterwards perspective. But yeah, man, I hear you. She probably was affected. You saw her limping a little bit after that big tackle. So just everything went Gotham's way, right?
Yeah, and I think as well, Bachmann, first game back, I think of course you expect her to be rough, but it is
hmm
what it is. She didn't participate fully in preseason. First game, of course she's gonna be rough. She's gonna be rough around the edges. So it's gonna affect her game. I think the biggest impact was Messiah Bright, because she
Right.
let go of the striking privileges to her and let last man Ryan to run the wing and made a huge impact. If you would say if she came on a little bit earlier, she came on the 75th minute. If she came on a little
hmm
bit earlier, I think she would have made a better impact for Dash. But it is what it is. But I think for me that I really liked about the Fabrice at this point at his career. He doesn't put subs to put subs on. He looks for subs that will make an impact, because
Right.
like
Right.
I think, he left, Sophie Schmidt, Putigam, Alozi, players that are experienced, mostly defensive players, but he felt like this is not what I need at this point in the game. And, I think the players we haven't seen is Westfall. I know she was a good
Mm.
defender, but a fullback, but interesting that she hasn't played at all so far in this campaign. Of course, Diana Dornius, I think he doesn't want to push her, or he doesn't feel like maybe she's not 100%. And I I applaud him because, I think putting players just to put players to see what they make a difference. It's some coach's style, but for him, he knows, okay, if I put this player on, I know what I'm gonna get out of him, and I know how
Right.
positively it will affect the game. And that's hard, unlike you see like a Dynamo, like today's match, just putting players to see what the difference and nothing changed. Everything stayed the same. But I think for Beast, he knows, okay, what I want and what I want to change, and not just for making substitutions, for making them.
Right. So kind of a little segue into what you mentioned there, just trying, Maggie got her first professional start and was something the fans were asking for the super sub to get a start. And I'm sure we even said it, and I'm sure us kind of said it on y'all's. I know Diego's, yeah, I think in love with Maggie by now, maybe, right? But
Yeah.
she got her first start. We've kind of talked about her performance a little bit in the start of this show, but one, was it the right decision to go ahead and give her the start in game number 3 against this tough Gotham team? Granted, it was at home, and then two, really overall, how was her performance? How did she do in this game? She played the entire 92, I believe.
Yeah, she did. So I kind of she had a great performance to be her, rookie start for the NWSL. I think she has glimpses of a great potential in the league and for the dash. So I think it was gonna be natural for her to start anytime soon, just by her performance and her
Yeah.
impact. So that doesn't come to a shock. For have it this game, I think it was a perfect time, just because the state of Gotham, they're not really strong at the moment.
Hmm.
Injuries to adjusting to new players, it was a perfect time for her to have a start. But I think her game overall, I think she lost a lot of impact that she had compared to a sub. I
Hmm.
think as well, just because her role was different at this game than previous games. I think the previous two games she was more of just attack, 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 and get something out of it. While this game, she was starting, so she had to develop as the game goes, as the rhythm of the game goes, and find herself in it. So, she was still impactful. She was still making tackles, getting the ball, but I think she was trying to be part of the team instead of being an impact on the team, which is two different roles. As a sub, you want to be
Right.
impact, you want to get something, while you're starting, trying to get the flow, get the game tempo, and be part of the team instead of being an individual player. And I think, for a rookie, it's hard, but she did great. She did overall, not a horrible game, but I think it's just, little time over time, she will get used to the team. And I think what it helped as well, the formation changed for this game compared to other games, And so it was more differently, especially not having Messiah, not having the players that she was used to. So it was a little bit harder for her. But I think overall, despite those obstacles, she played a great game.
Right, I think you're right. How they mentioned she and Fabrice both mentioned that, and her role coming off the bench was kind of freelance, playing out of the six, but freelance. So being able to get into the box that she feels free to. But of course, now getting the start, you have more objectives, you have more instructions, and And that's probably the big difference. So you do feel like you can be less impactful, but at the same time you are as impactful because you're still doing your job and playing your role. So that was a good point to make. And the difference between starting and between coming off the bench, there's a little less. A little more leeway when you're coming off the bench and trying to make a quick difference in a game or in a different specific role as in when you're starting, you got to kind of expand your roles. Absolutely. Something that we've talked about on this show previously, me and Andreas and Juan last week was, just because we saw it at the end of the previous game, was Yasmin Ryan got to move up and play the nine, and we liked what she did in that previous game where her speed kind of gave a little spark. We were able to attack against Chicago, so that kind of maybe made a big difference. But Yasmin Ryan got to start at the nine in this game, and I was kind of surprised that she got the start at the nine. But I was not surprised that she got to start at the nine. We're looking for a nine. Messiah Bright has been doing it. Deanna Ordonez of course, is coming off her injury, still looking for form. So you don't expect her to start. But Yasmin Ryan at the nine. We kind of how would she utilize herself at this position? How would it work out during the game? Granted, it kind of backfired the way Gotham defended us and played against us, but did you have an issue one when you first saw the lineup with Yasmin starting at the nine? And then how did it work out during this game? And was it more credit to Gotham? And I'd like to see more of Yaz at the nine.
I think, at first it caught surprise, I think, because, you know, she was technically performing as a nine, switching off with Messiah and them, one going the
Right.
wing, one going the striker. So I think, but as we saw these games, I think, Jasmine perform better when she carries the ball from midfielder up to the penalty box. I think it just her game, her confidence grows as she controls the ball more and more. I think when she has depend on others to get her the ball into the box, not she's not saying that she gets lost, but I think like the confidence is not as the same as she did before. And I think supporting cast, of course, of Ryan Garris and Barbara Oliveri did not help with her. I feel like those the other two
Mm.
games were more impactful. But this game you could tell that for Jasmine it was detrimental for her. I feel like she didn't get a lot of the ball. She didn't get a lot of confidence. So she felt she was isolated, and it showed in the game. She had to go back. She had to go back, and it just didn't help with the attack. That's why we felt weak sometimes. But I don't mind her being at the nine. I think she's capable of it. I think it's just a supporting cast to help her, to give her confidence and give her the duties that she needs. I think it's just we're trying to find the right players for the right. I think that knows how to combine with other players at the moment. And to be honest, it's just the third game. These players are new. You have to mention that Jasmine's new. She's getting accustomed to these players. So it's going to be a while to see how she can fully reach her ceiling.
Right, I agree. And I give credit more to a lot to Gotham, but the way they defended us and just Juan Carlos just kind of outcoached us in this game, and that's not a bad thing. But I hope maybe against other teams, maybe against like a Chicago Stars who we just played last week. Yasmin starting at the nine, there's going to be a lot more going on because there's going to be a lot more involvement, obviously, because your opponent is a lesser opponent. But this was a tough one, but it was cool to see her playing at the nine and just getting that start at the nine. Wish there was more involvement with the team and more production, but it's something to maybe look at still in the future. But as I kind of mentioned last show that I like it as a role type of putting her at the nine late in the game. You're stretching your opponent out. Maybe you're up one, or it's 0-0. You're on the road, or 1-1, and you're on the road, and the opponent's pushing on you, but you've got her sitting up top with her speed ready to push, and you got probably Messiah Bright still in the game trying to push. You have a Ryan Jones on the wing that could also push with pace and speed. So it's something that you could do. But I'm interested to see if she could still, play that role at the nine sometimes, because we'll get into the nine situation later on the show. But for right now, as the team is building their reputation, their chemistry, and and growing, Yasmin Ryan's still yet to score her first goal, or I don't even think she got an assist yet. But where or how can Fabrice produce goals in the meantime while he figures out this dash attack?
I think, I think the most of the goals will be coming from I would say just from the midfield, because we have a lot of good attacking midfielders now. I think Maggie Graham of course scored the only two goals for Dash, but I think you will see players like Delaney Sheehan. She could have a goal in the first game. She almost did. She's
Gary's
really
hit the post.
exactly. And so Avery Patterson. I'll skip it pass by her to get a goal. As she did last season, she did a great goal last year, her first goal on the last game, but it was really great. So and you saw her threat coming up and down. So you might see her. Barb has some goals in her, maybe not a lot, but it does. I do see a lot of goals coming from the midfield forward, just because the status of Deanna, it's kind of hard to see how she recovers. Messiah, she likes to switch a lot with Ryan. So, if anyone would be beneficial, would be Yasmin Ryan to get all the goals, for the forward line. And so that's the only problem I see.
We
So
need Yasmin to break it off, and once she gets one, I think she's going to start getting more, and something to look forward to. And yeah, I'm kind of with you right now until we can figure out how we're going to produce the attack. I think the defense is solid, and you'll see it come in more games. We have the bye this week, obviously, with the international break, which gives Fabrice more time. And I kind of like the timing of this break. It fits well. Yeah, man, if we could just, utilize that left wing more, and Ryan Gary's take advantage of her pace, and whoever covers around, and Patterson on the opposite side. Yeah, I think we can produce some more goals, and those crosses will come in, and Messiah Bright's just a workhorse too. I love the pace and what the energy that she gives when she's playing that striker role up there too, and so hopefully we can find her going forward. So, segue: Messiah Bright versus Deanna Ordonez versus the Ghost Nine. Who's going to play the nine? Yasmin Ryan. Who fits better? Granted, Ordonez we're yet to see yet, but we do know what type of player she is, and she's definitely a target striker. She's going to need to be in the box, and you're going to need to find her in the box for her to find her target. She's not going to be one of those pacey forwards, so it's nice to see that Messiah Bright can kind of bring the same different intangibles, but be the same type of striker, more of a. But she pays. She's a little more. She gets a little more witty, as you mentioned, switching up with Yasmin Ryan as times called during the game. So it's a good problem to have, I think. But or let's just say Ordonez is 100% healthy. She's fit. Obviously, by the time she's 100%, we'll see her play in a couple games here with this new team. But let's just be hypothetical right now: the Messiah Bright versus Deanna Ordonez, or is there a nine, or do we need to scout somebody else as the window is closed? We have to deal with it for now. What are you liking better going forward right now?
I think at the moment, just how the players we have, just the
I
players
think
we
you're
have.
muted, but it's
Let's see.
the Ordonez isn't hurt, man. She's healthy too. Just to remind everybody, as I asked the hypothetical question.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, no, I think, at the moment it will be Messiah Bright, just because of the players that we have right now. The players that we have right now fits more with Messiah, just because Messiah likes to come back more, and switch off whatever players that wants to compete with her to switch off the attack. But I think with Deanna, she's a forward that likes either holding the ball or being a target forward. And I think at the moment, just the players like Yasmin, Avery Patterson, Delaney Sheehan, they like to work between the strikers to switch off and go and attack themselves. So I think at the moment, Messiah will be the better fit, but just that's at the moment. It's how we see because we haven't seen Deanna at the moment. We saw her previous teams with previous squad iteration, but you can see this squad is way different than others the previous 2 years that Deanna was here. So it's kind of hard to tell how she will fit in, but I think at the moment it's just really, really Messiah has proved a lot, even though she hasn't been scoring or getting assists, but just the work rate and just how she combines with other teammates. I think it just shows a lot of her.
Oh yeah, man, that's a couple good ways to look at it. So I'm intrigued just to see what we'll do and what goes forward and how we'll utilize that nine. Another question I brought up previously on the show, and I apologize to her in case her or their family or anybody's listening or friends are listening, but Sophie Schmidt, I've been talking about experience to youth in the starting lineup, and one of the ones that I kind of targeted first to be replaced in the starting lineup was Sophie Schmidt. I wasn't exactly excited the way her performances were in the previous games. I know what she is. I know what she does bring. She's that defensive mentality. She can get into the attack. But again, she's coming onto the back end, and we have a lot of potential sitting there on the bench, and somebody else that could play in the midfield, i.e., Maggie. You have a Colaprico, you have a Sheehan, you have other players on the bench. You have a Zoe Matthews who's not even making the bench. You have a Bachmann who just finally made the bench and got on the field. But Sophie Smith, the question that I brought up last week was, is it time for her to just become a role bench player or a role starter, utilizing games to where we need that CDM, we need that defensive juggernaut to come in, and it could be a center back, it could be that CDM, just holding CDM, a draw that you're trying to maintain on the road, or like you're playing Orlando Pride in Orlando. Yes, start Sophie Smith because you're going to need an extra defensive type. So the question I asked last week, the question I asked to you is, how do you feel about Sophie Smith as a starter? Because technically she is still one, 2 games to one. So starter, role player, well, how do you utilize Sophie Smith if you're Fabrice?
I think, I think to help better the depth of the chart, I think Sophie Schmidt helps a lot better in the depth. Reason why is because you see players like Colaprico who starts next to her, and Barbara Olivieri, and Avi Patterson, and Ryan Garris, Yasmin Ryan, Messiah Bright. They're really attacking players. They're really players that will change the tempo if you let them attack. So having her, maybe she's not you know, the quickest to get up and down the field, but she does her role well, which is come back, defend, and get the ball, move forward quick, quick. And at the moment, it helps a lot, in the games we saw. But I'll agree with you. Players don't last forever. You're trying to find a replacement for her. I was thinking, maybe this is a season that Putigam steps up, or Bell Breed, who is maybe on the roster for the last 3 games. You know, she's a player who was constantly active the last season, so she's not even involved. And so Fabrice sees that she doesn't go to the full 90 minutes, but she's still good value at the at this current stage of the squad. It's at the moment, but reason why I will still play her because she will tire the attack, opponent's attack, tire everything and try to keep it clean sheet. And when she needs to sub, you got, Sheehan, you got, Maggie coming off the bench. But I would like to see maybe Sheehan over Schmidt, just to have her and Coloprico in the midfielder. Maybe that would imbalance the in midfielder a lot, just to have Sheehan will often play striker or move forward. But she has enough mental game experience to know when to attack, when to defend. But I think at the moment, to help the bench wise to make an impact and later ends the game, Sophie might be the better option starting to end the game in a better way with adding the players that are on the bench to impact the game. Because I don't think her having be on the bench and coming to the game to won't make a positive attacking impact. I think the only time she will make a positive impact if we're winning the game and try to close out the game to have her coming off the bench. But I think it's just the way how the bench is in midfield wise, defensively, box to box. I think she's a better fit starting.
Right. Well, you mentioned Belle Breed and Zoe Matthews, Amanda West still hadn't made the bench yet. Our players that are supposedly healthy. Kiki Van Zetten, not even sure if she's healthy, but I thought she was healthy. Another player that, defensive wise too, that hadn't made the bench yet. Puttingham, who made the bench but hasn't gotten a minute yet in the first 3 games. So that's somebody that kind of surprised that hasn't gotten minutes. So there's options there, but I'm with you. Obviously, we're together on this one. We're better role player, defensively styled, but and I like what you said, Sheehan and Colaprico. But again, there's problems, there's options. So I'd like to see some of those players that make the roster that have not been making the roster and see if they can get in there. What's going on with them too. So curious and curious, but. Let's move on, move on, move on. All right, man. New player. And since our last show, we had a signing. Since your last show, you got to talk about it. So you get to talk about it a little bit more here. But we signed Rebecca Dos Santos. Shoot, I don't even remember her last name now. Costa. We'll just call her Rebecca. She's Brazilian, and they like to go by one single name. Brazilian. She's here till 28, I believe, with an option for 29, and maybe a year earlier. Defender who can play across the board, left to right, and can also play in that 6 role. Plays 6 for her country, I believe, and plays defender center back for her club. So it's interesting to see what she can come in here and do. First off, 19 years old. I believe she participated with her team in the World Cup. I'm not sure. Is she on the main? She's not on the main Brazilian team yet, is she? Yeah. So she's on the
No.
U20 or whatever. So she's not Tarsi's partner just quite yet. But I'm intrigued and I'm curious about her. What she's going to do, what she's going to bring. And how we're going to use her. So Manny, go ahead and tell us what you know about Rebecca, what the fans could expect from her. And then 2, where does she fit in this lineup? Because you mentioned the 3 center backs right now just doing damn well, playing damn well. And you kind of like, which one do you want to take out? Or does she come in and play the 6? How do we use her? What's her role? But man, take me through Rebecca. Who is she?
I think Rebeca Costa da Silva. I think from Cruzeiro, it's a player that has a good ceiling, just like Tarciani did when she came in. It's a good player to have, especially as someone that Fabrice really highly regards her as a multi-functional player, a multi player that can play multiple positions in the defensive line and as the 6. So I won't expect the only thing, cautions warning, this is the first transfer away from Cruzeiro. So this is
Hmm.
the club's first away transfer to a team, and it happens to be, the Houston Dash. So that would be the only caution I have, just because this player is literally mostly unproven on the higher end of the sport. So that's going to be the only question mark I have. But seeing how she will integrate to the team, it was gonna be a while. How Tarciani came in, it took a while for her to come, about 3 to 4 weeks. So I expect the same thing for her, 3 to 4 weeks to come in. Of course, not in game ready position. She will have to go through a lot of pre-training, training, and hopefully to make on the roster. But I think her, I will see a lot will be off the bench, just because of her experience. I don't think she's a starter like Tarciani was. Tarciani was starter for her team back in Brazil, her national team before even coming to the Dash. So she already had first team experience at a high level and lost to the semifinals to you know lost to the finals to the USA. So you know what type of player you're getting from the dash, from Tarciani. But for her, I think it's a lot of question marks, a lot of, I think, ceiling that could be a good upside for the dash. So like I always said, players are not here for forever. It's good to have a young player to help her build. And I think the recruiting, the only thing I would say is just like the Dynamo was 2 years ago, the recruiting has been elite. This season, gain players that will make a difference, get players that will fit a system. And so far, most of the players have fit the system, have improved the team. So I do not doubt that she will improve the team. Maybe just her age. Aegis is going to be, the experienced first team, high level experience will be in question. But of course, I think over time, getting used to the players and everything will benefit her over the long run. So, though I would expect her maybe starting maybe during the summer games when we have a summer tournament or summer friendlies, the Dash will have this break. So I do expect to maybe start her a lot there and see how it goes from there.
Well, that's the benefit of right now not being desperate and not necessity needing her immediately into a position. So that's a benefit, barring, of course, no injuries. We talked about it earlier. There's not a lot of depth as far as, center back. Westfall's kind of an outside back, but still hasn't seen the pitch yet. And then besides that, there is no other center backs unless you use Sophie Schmidt as a center back. So it'll be nice to see her get in there and get into the rotation and utilize her. Of course, we'll be able to see her play a few games to get in our gist of her and just see how she plays and get of course, our eye test judgment on her. I like the signing. It's to me, it's another good signing. It's crazy that they're not a comparison to Tarsi, but they kind of mentioned her in the same sentence. But I get the Brazil representation right there. I hope she's anything close to Tarsi was. And it'll be exciting times back there on that back line and just building this team. And I love the moves that Jessica O'Neill and Angela are orchestrating. And speaking of Angela, I believe it was her out of her own mouth that maybe it was Fabrice, but they mentioned it on their own, with helping with the transition of her move here as well. So I think that's something that was probably mentioned by the agent or just made sure that, or just really just coherent of it and just make sure, hey, let the fans know that we're going to help this woman get transition over here or this young lady transition over here and make this big move as it is her first time out of Brazil. So man, I look forward to it. Congrats on the Dash on this move. I hope it's a big benefit, but we'll see. Like you said, in a few weeks, she's got to get here first and then we'll put her in. But international break first, as I mentioned. But so early results standings where we stand. Where do you think we would finish? We all predicted where we thought the Dash would finish to start the season. Now we're 3 games in. Has the needle changed at all for you?
I
Why don't you tell
I
people where you thought they would finish prior to the season, and then tell me if your needle changed from there?
I predicted in our podcast that we're gonna finish ninth, so just out of the playoffs. And I think as the team goes and how the NWSL has been going, I think there's a really good chance that they might finish sixth, seven, or eighth at this point, just because just because the Dash have played differently, a lot differently than many people expected them to play, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You wanted to make sure that you're surprised the opponents, that each game is different. The NWSL is not easy, and games are are very easy on paper than on the pitch. But of course, the only three teams you want to watch out for is, of course, Orlando Pride, KC Current, and Washington Spirit. I think everyone else is up for grabs because those are the three teams kept their main squad, kept add improvements to it, and so those are the three teams that you want to watch out for. And the Dash played the Washington and barely lost 2-1. And I think in a game that the Dash maybe should have earned a point instead of loves losing. So
Right.
if you lost barely to one of the top teams in the league, that shows a lot of your improvement, to be honest. And so it's just right now I think at the moment it's a good mix at the moment. The question is, will they keep going? Will they improve? Will they iron out the mistakes or iron out, attacking paralysis that we had at the beginning of the season? There, there's signs of it. For instance, they iron out the defense. The defense is now more solid now. So now can they
Hmm.
do that in the midfield and the attacking presence? So that's the great questions that Fabrice has to find out within the coming weeks. And I think the hardest part of the schedule is the last part of the schedule for the Dash. The Dash has to face the hardest opponents. Literally at the end of the season, they have to face look about this: Washington, Orlando Pride, KC, and Portland as their final games. That's a hard end to the season. That's no one wants that schedule, and the Dash has that schedule.
Right.
So that's I think if they get points of those one of those four opponents, I think for sure they're probably in the playoffs.
Ooh, man. Yeah, so I was seventh or eighth is one of my preseason prediction, and I'm still sitting right there at seven or eight. I would like to make the playoffs. I think we have enough to make the playoffs. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of parity in the NWSL. You have the two teams that are on top. You have Washington trying to stay on top and trying to get their way back on the top. Rodman, I think, just finally made her first start of the season and scored two, I think, or assist, whichever. But so. I'm curious to what we can do, but we have a lot of hope. Like you said, we got players we're not even going to be able to utilize, not even make the bench. You have so Fabrice has a lot of good problems to work with, which is a curious thing to move it on. But man, let me run you through the scores from last week in the NWSL. Kind of mention the standings and anything that stood out to you. Of course, we had 0-0 Dash versus Gotham. As you mentioned, Washington Spirit, they got on their they had a good game against Bay FC, which Bay's a good team and a good performing team from the expansion last year. Washington 2-0. Orlando at home against San Diego Wave. I guess San Diego's not really no joke. Hearing good things about them, they gave Orlando a good fight, 2-1. Good win, of course. Kansas City Current 3-0. Crazy stat about Orlando. That's the first time they're starting 3-0, and it's crazy how you think the way they played last season they would have started off the season 3-0, but or 3-0 this season, first time in I guess Pride history. Current 3-0 over Utah. Portland and Courage 0-0. Chicago Stars, of course, lost to Racing 0-1, and then Angel City, yay, I like them. They got to win 2-1 against Seattle Rain. But that's any of those games stand out to you? Orlando Pride only San Diego 2-1.
I think that'll be the game of the week. I think it showed that San Diego is a team to look out for. I think, of course, last year a huge mess. How the team was. They got Maria Sanchez, who thought they would be a game changer, wasn't effective, basically, from
Right.
the Houston Dash. They sacked their head coach midfield and they brought Landon Donovan, who had a poor record as a first team manager and it continued to show for the San Diego. But of course, San Diego, of course, they brought in new acquisitions last season. Delphine Casquiriano, the famous player with the number 69. She's not wearing
No, yeah.
69, sadly, this season. I know many people are sad about that. If she's never number 20, you have Adriana Leon. She's an older player, but yet very, very, very clinical in front of goal. Last year she was the top scorer for the Women's CONCACAF Gold Cup, and she was banging their goals in, for Aston and for the Canada and for Aston Villa. And now I think the new head coach, the former Arsenal women's head coach, Jonas, has been orchestrating this team to build a new vibe, a tempo, and it shows a lot. They went toe to toe with Orlando. If it wasn't for that foul in the penalty box
Yeah.
for San Diego against Orlando Pride to make Martha to score that penalty, I think the game deservedly should have ended 1-1. And so, but it just shows that San Diego can go up toe to toe with Orlando Pride, who is a hard
Hmm.
team to get the upper hand on at the season. So just for them, just to lose by a silly mistake, it shows a lot for them. I think that's a team you need to be watching out for. And other than that, of course, KC being KC, you know, it's so you're not surprised when they beat a team out like that. Washington, of course, they're coming back. Injuries are coming back. Players are coming back fit. So you don't see that coming. I think the Sunday game. I think Sunday's game. I think it's just. I think if you're a Dash fan, I think that's the game you should watch out for. Chicago Stars, Racing Louisville, Angel City, and Seattle. Those are the teams you're gonna be fighting against to get those playoff positions. Study those opponents because you need to get to know them. Yeah, I think a lot of them show vulnerability. A lot of them show that they're still rocky in the beginning of the season. So that's the teams you need to look out for because those are future opponents as well to get the upper hand.
Right, you got Orlando, Kansas City, both 3-0 still. Washington Spirit, as you mentioned, in third with 6 points because they have the 2 wins. Nobody else has 2 wins in the entire league. Angel City hasn't got a loss. They got a win and 2 ties, so they're sitting in fifth. But then, fourth, so then sitting in fifth with 4 points is four friggin' five teams: San Diego, Seattle, Houston, Bay, and all Racing Louisville, which all have a win, a tie, and a loss. So there's the jumble 5 through 9 right there. And so obviously it's only week number 3 that'll break out. But as you mentioned, San Diego and Seattle, two of those teams, Racing, that are teams you're gonna have to fight with to make sure you make the playoffs. You still have it's kind of weird not seeing it. So you have Portland down there. I don't expect them to come up this year, so they're probably going to stay down there. But you do have a
Yeah.
Gotham sitting there in 12th. You do expect them to come up. You have a Utah Royals, who's not bad, sitting down there at the bottom right now. North Carolina Courage, who could jump up. So in the league, a lot going on right there. Orlando and Kansas City both giving up 1 goal each to start the season. Orlando with 10 goals, Kansas City with 8 so far, which is friggin' incredible and insane to those teams just breakouts, man.
Yeah.
But hey, we're right there though. We're above the playoff line, technically according to the way the standings are, but we'll continue. But as we mentioned, we have a bye this week. It'll be international games, international call-ups. Assume Bachmann is going to be called up to the Swiss team, even though she's already taken off. I didn't see if she was called up, but she's already taken off. Maybe Punt and Gam will get to go back to play for Australia, hopefully, amongst others. But let's just talk about the main ones, the ones that we like to have fun with, which is the U.S. women's national team. Of course, Jane Campbell, of course, Yasmin Ryan, and now Avery friggin' Patterson gets added to the mix and will most likely play in one of these 2 games. Not play, she'll play. But might likely start in one of those 2 games against Brazil, and most likely will, as you mentioned in your show, play on the left side too, which will be interesting to see as a inverted left back, man. But first off, let's congratulations to those 3 players, Dash call-ups, and we'll also want to mention Zoe Matthews for the U18 call-up as well. Even though she hadn't even touched the field yet, she got the call-up to the camp. Excited for her and those 4 players right there, and look forward to them. But let's just focus on A.B. Patterson since she's the new one now. She did futures before, but now she's calling up to the big girls team, man. Excited for her, and obviously you can tell she's excited. Her 6-year-old self, I think it was happy for herself, man.
Yeah, she is. So I think that's the team that, you're looking forward to, that you're looking forward to see that every Patterson gets her first call up. Hopefully she gets to start one of those games, or if you come off the bench, you don't know how this will go out. But I think that's one of the player you look out for because as I mentioned before, if Emma Hayes took a special notice of her, Emma Hayes has a huge career of winning and gaining success and showing unproven players why they deserve to start a team. And so she saw something in Avery, and so I do believe that she will get an opportunity for it. And and looking at the roster at the moment, I think she has a good chance. As we saw the Houston Dash games versus Gotham, Tina Davidson is out. We don't know how long. I know she might not be quick enough to recover for the Brazil game on Saturday. So she
She was in a
you're
cast after the game.
yeah, exactly. She's in the cast, so she will probably be helping at defense or it's just hard to know. She might damage her, starting as well because those injuries, she's a star defender for the team, and so you don't know how it goes. But I think it's a good shot for her to have an opportunity at the world stage against Brazil, against a repeat of the Olympic final. Brazil, is a good strong team, a good powerful team. So it'll be a lot for them to overcome and see how it goes. But it's Brazil call a good squad. They call Tarciani up. So we'll see how the Dash players will face against Tarciani, who they know already. So except Yasmin
Yeah,
Ryan, she hasn't
of
played
course.
with her. But it's a good matchup. It's a good see. And if Avery gets a good start and gets a good performance, I think she will solidify herself maybe for future call-ups. It's hard to know. It's
Mm.
hard to know, but you always want to give a good impression on your first game.
I mean, she's made nothing but good impressions on Emma Hayes already since the start, since Emma's been there, and how quick she's moving up through the ranks. That's exciting. And I listen to Soccer Wise as well too, and they mentioned a couple of names that should have that missed out on the roster, and but in her defense, I don't remember her name that was on the show with what's his face on Soccer Wise, but she mentioned the players that he mentioned were not as forward going attacking style defenders, left backs, left wing backs, and that's probably the edge that Avery Patterson has over a couple other players who did not make the camp or was
Mhm.
not called up at this particular time, and that goes to the style that Emma Hayes is trying to project onto the team and and how they want to play is Avery Patterson fits and is a mold of the player that Emma Hayes wants. And what Emma Hayes wants is you do just look at her from her Chelsea days. You don't argue with Emma Hayes. You do what she says and you know it's going to work. You just need to believe in yourself and perform and execute the job at hand, man. But congratulations to those. We play Brazil twice. Both of those are home games. The one is at SoFi in San Diego, and that one is sold out. The other one, I believe, is up the coast for the second one just a few days later. But both against Brazil, they are friendlies, but you expect to see the most and what you can out of it. Of course, no Sophie Wilson. Sorry, no Mallory Swanson, but you do have a Trinity Rodman that'll probably look like she'll be good to go for a full fit game. It could be somebody dangerous. Yasmin Ryan will most likely get a start again, and we'll see what she can do. Interesting, but man, go give me a little preview on the USA Brazil games as we end up the episode here pretty quick.
I think it's gonna be a good game for I think to see how much USA came from from the Olympic Games. A lot of players are missing. There's a lot of new transition players that will face this Brazil squad. Brazil didn't change that much. Still kept their core. They still kept a good. The US changed a lot of their roster. So you see, of course, Jane Campbell most likely will start one of those games because she's fighting for her role for as the number one goalkeeper. So that's just that was the huge question mark coming in. But there's a lot of other question marks as well. No Mallory Swanson. There's no Sophia Wilson. It's just Trinity Raman from the exploding attacking front line. So you do have huge gaps there. And so I think we saw as the She Believes Club, the USA managed for some teams, like Colombia, like Australia, managed to win those games easily. But when it comes to the harder team like Japan, they struggled. They struggled a lot. And
Yeah.
so it was just, players getting to used to high opposition. We might see that as well with Brazil. It's a good thing they placed Brazil twice. I think the first game you will see a lot of mistakes, a lot of getting to know Brazil for most of these players to see. Maybe the second game will be more calmer, much more better tactician for both to know the strength and the tops and ends. But it's going to be still an interesting window for the U.S. I think for the Dash, if you're looking interested for Dash players, hopefully Jane keeps a clean sheet, and that will solidify her. She is, quote unquote, at the moment, the runner up at the moment to solidify herself as the number one goalkeeper. But of course, she has to improve that not only the Dash, but all international stage as well. So that would be one. Yasmin Ryan has a gaping hole right now. No Mallory Swanson, no Sophia Wilson. So the position's almost hers at the moment if she continues to prove for the U.S. And for Avery, just try to do her best at your substitution or starting to make a positive impact. You already have the favor of, like you say, of Emma Hayes on you. So all you gotta do is show it on the field. When you show up the field like she does for the Houston Dash, she will own her spot to her future call up, or maybe the next call up. So it's a good window for players that trying to solidify herself. But overall for the US, it's gonna be hard. I do see maybe one of those games to be a draw, and maybe USA to win by barely, maybe one goal. But it's I can't tell you like a for sure scoreline because it could be 1-0, two
Yeah.
one. It's gonna be really edgy for the US. Brazil will be more comfortable. Brazil might I if it doesn't play well for USA, Brazil might overtake them. But it's very hard. Like I say, it's very hard to tell at the moment.
Well, there you go, Dashers. You heard it right there. Even if you just follow the Dash, there's reason now to follow the U.S. Women's National Team, or if it was vice versa, you're kind of
But
following the Dash now because you follow it. Yeah, go ahead,
mhm.
man.
No, also it's a good thing as well, as you mentioned before, I forget. If you just followed the US women's national team, now you see Houston Dash players playing in it. And I think
Yeah,
before here, I think you always show up to see Mallory Swanson. Oh, Mallory Swanson's here. The Chicago Stars. So let's show up to see Mallory Swanson. When Trinity Rodman's here, let's show up to see Trinity Rodman or Alex Morgan. Now that you have actually players playing for the U.S. Women's national team that are local in your Houston, that will bring more, hopefully more those U.S. Women's national team fans to Dash games. So
right.
it's apparently it's for USA to play well, but also for the individual players to play well as well to get more fans in the stadium for Dash.
Yeah, that is a good thing to say. That was something Tim Howard mentioned too as well. Whenever we were talking to him, or media was talking to him, whichever. It's just something to one way to bring it. It was kind of disappointing the crowd that we weren't able to pull. Granted, it was still cold for Sea Belize, but was hoping for more of a bigger crowd to come out and watch that type of game, and a game that did matter. Granted, the opponent wasn't probably the greatest, but still, it's a U.S. Women's National Team in your stadium. You don't get that many chances to see your team. They're here, but hopefully it's something now time to grow. They'll get to watch them on TV and just enjoy watching them. And then, they'll be in your stadium. Maybe you'll go out and watch the U.S. women's play in your stadium, but also you'll come out because now you're like, oh, I'm interested in the Dash because of these three players. Like you said, they drew the line. So that's good, man. But Manny, long episode, a little bit over an hour, a good one. That was a She Shines episode. Appreciate you coming on today, but Manny, tell us about Orange and Blueprints, when it is, tell people how they can find you, and if you want to give a shout out, man, throw that out there as well.
Yeah, so it's Manny Olivares, with usually just the Dash journalist for the Bayou City Soccer. You can always find us at BayouCitySoccer.net or YouTube, Instagram, or X, Blue Sky, X, as well as Threads. We're all everywhere. The Orange and Blueprints are on Wednesday nights. So live, you always can participate with your comments and everyone. So we like that formal get with me and Diego. Diego is my co-host. So we like to have all that and just come out and come out. I think this is a good exciting time for Dash fans. I think sad to see the Dynamo and Dynamo 2 at the moment losing, but there's hope for the Dash to do something now to lift that mantle. I think I just want to live in a world where Dynamo and Dash both succeed at the same time. I feel like one succeeds and the other one drops. And then when
Right.
the other one succeeds, the other one drops. So I just want to live in a timeline where both succeed at the same time.
That would be an amazing thing to do, right? In our lives, and just to have fun on winning on both sides of the spectrum. But I'm having fun with the Dash. I'm glad the Dash are having fun. Things are working out for the Dash, and we move, but we'll have to wait 2 weeks to see what the Dash get to do again. Next week we'll get to come back and review the U.S. Women's National game and how the Dash players do, and we'll see if we can find some video and a review and see how Zoe Matthews did in her games. over the weekend as well. We'll come back. We'll talk. Make sure, like you said, y'all listen to him live on Wednesday nights. Of course, it'll be on your podcast channels after the live show. But he's Manny, Bayou City. I'm OSG, Foxtrot Media. You're in the Foxtrot Studios. And I think tonight, in hashtag worthy, we went beyond. So go beyond. Manny, we do our
That's what's
H's up. Then thank you, bro.
That's going to take us to the end of this match. Final Houston and Gotham. A scoreless draw from Shell Energy Stadium.